we're back. We're podcasting in the day now.
Yeah. I went to bed so late last night. It was kind of like my old days of drinking where you're like, what are you doing? Still up.
What time was it? You should have texted me. I was up till about 4:30.
That's what time I was up. And I really did think about it, but I was like, 4:30 is so late to start a text conversation that I was afraid that we would keep texting
That's a
until
good
6 in
point.
the morning.
That's a
Um,
good point.
I was just scrolling nonstop through TikTok because I haven't done it in a while. And Joe's out of town, so I'm just like full
That's what it is.
volume in bed,
You're
just
like a,
doing it. It's
you're
so
like a
weird.
kid without parents who's just like eating whatever they want, staying up as late as they want, watching as much garbage TV
Oh
because Joe's
yeah.
not there.
I watched Emily in Paris. That's my new
Is that a
favorite show
movie?
right now. It sounds like a Lifetime movie, but it's a TV series on Netflix and it's created by Darren Star who did Sex in the City. So it
Ooh,
has
I love
all the
Sex and the
elements.
City.
Oh yeah, it has all the elements of Sex in the City minus all the tons of sex, but there's tons of like really attractive, good-looking guys on there. She has the most badass outfits and then it's set in Paris. So like the storylines
Kind
are a
of the
little
same.
cheesy. What? Yeah.
Well, I've started watching Dawson's Creek.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that. I was gonna try and then I just
You
decided to
got
go
into
to Emily in Paris.
Dawson's Creek. I don't, it's weird because you like, oh, this is a show that was on regular TV, but it's not corny really. Like Pacey right away hooks up with his teacher. He's 15. I'm like, this would never get on TV today. Or
Yeah.
if it did, it would turn into like a trial where she had to, you know what I mean? Like she just bangs this like 15-year-old kid. And then there's another part where like Dawson's mom is like cheating on her husband. Like this is in the first season. Then they decide to have an open marriage. Like it is not as cheesy as I thought it would be. Um what's his name? The guy that was in
The
Batman.
Affair.
Like, oh yeah, Joshua Jackson. He's in it. He's the guy that has the affair. What's that other person's name? I can't remember. The one that was Michelle Williams that was married to what's his name that died from Batman? Jesus Christ.
we're just we're just moms.
Yeah, I'm just like a mom who's like, remember that guy that was in that show? Not Keith Sutherland.
No,
Come
I
on,
had
the guy
that
that was in Brokeback Mountain.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, so she's in this show, and I was curious to see what their kid looks like, and the kid looks exactly like Heath Ledger, their
Yeah.
daughter. It's kind of freaky that like he killed himself, but his daughter looks exactly like him. So he
I know
does
it.
live on.
Isn't that crazy? When you're like, you look exact. It's like spooky.
Yeah, and anytime that kid was giving me a problem, I would just be like, "Your dad killed himself because of you." I think that would lead to a lot of healthy conversations.
Oh
So anyway,
yeah.
it's not that cheesy of a story as I thought it would be. Like they do speak very philosophical for 15-year-olds. Like the stuff they say, you're like, they'll
Like
be like
boundaries.
no, they're just be like the demise of my melancholy, and that's just like their regular talking, and you're like, no 15-year-old talks like that.
No.
But I do still
No.
like it, and I need something to watch. I've watched Sex and the City so many times. I still can watch it, but I don't have HBO anymore.
Oh yeah, I can watch that. Well, that's the thing with like those Darren Star shows is sometimes the dialogue is pretty corny and the jokes are like sometimes they're all puns.
Mark
And
Norman would love it.
I know, but the character development throughout the season, like you always really like all the characters.
Yeah, I'll check it out once I'm done with Dawson.
Um, Somebody on TikTok showed an episode of Sex in the City, and they were like, "This is so like bi-homophobic or whatever you biphobic. I don't know, like
What does that mean?
anti-bisexuals."
Okay.
And I was like, well, a gay man created this show. Not that, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't, that's in your community
Yeah, I don't.
that
Why is it
created that.
biphobic?
Cause she Carrie goes on, meets a guy and starts dating him, and then she finds out that he was bi,
Hmm.
and has dated men in his past, and she had a big problem with that. But to be honest, like, that's her prerogative, and it is weird. I don't think this is where I'm archaic, and I admit it, is like, I can't get over the hump of, like, if I found out Joe dated men or had, like,
I would have
extreme.
a well, I would have a problem, I think, dating anyone that was just open to fucking everyone. Because, like,
Mhm.
especially in the beginning of a relationship, you're just like, do you want to fuck everyone in this room right now? I don't know. Maybe we're just old. I like the fact that you go on TikTok and try and keep us young and then tell me about stuff twice a week on the podcast.
I
I'm like,
update you on.
biphobic. I'm like, is that like eyeglasses? And I was like, it can't be bifocal. It's not like that.
Well, I guess in a way it's homophobic if you are a straight woman and you don't wanna date a guy that's had sex with another guy.
Is
But
it
you're
though?
like,
What if you're
I
like, I don't care. I don't care if I don't know if it is or isn't, but if you're like, I love gay dudes, I just don't want to date a guy who's got his ass ripped open. I don't know if that's like you can't really say that, but I think you're allowed to feel that. Like, I don't know, like what about people who are like, I wouldn't personally have an abortion, but like I don't care who else does.
yeah, I agree.
I don't know. What does that fall under? I feel like we are in this arena in life right now where you're just every year there's a new set of rules, a new set of like things you can't like, a new set of things that are like sexist or racist or homophobic that you've never even thought of. Like,
No.
I'm
I would
so sick of everything that's going on in the news and like the virus. Like, do you know the numbers in New York? Because I was like, it feels like COVID's over. The numbers right now are 19,000 in New York.
That's not that bad.
It's pretty bad. The highest they were during the peak was 11,000. I
Was
mean,
it really? Oh, I didn't know.
yeah.
I would assume that it would be a lot more with the amount of people that live in New York City.
Well, it was 11,000. Now it's 19,000, which is almost double. So I think that's much worse. But I checked California's numbers and it's 50,000
Yeah, they
for
fucked up.
one day.
Well, there was something weird about their COVID testing. This is what I read, is that the county did, or I guess LA County or something, did like a contractual deal with a testing company, and they got the cheapest form of test that gives false negatives, I guess.
Sweet. That's where you
So
want to save your money.
I know, but it makes you think that there was just like friends helping friends, and now it's screwed over. You know what I mean? Like the
There's going to be, it'll take years to uncover all of the bad stuff that's happened that people have like covered up or lied about. Or
I just think a lot of people that are held in position of power have a lot of connections to make a lot of money, and I think it's bullshit.
I think they also owe a lot of favors. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you're like, hey, if you get like everyone to vote for me in your fucking district, then I'm going to owe you. So that person goes and does it. Sorry, I just drank coffee. And then that guy's like, well, now you owe me. So like now you have to buy my shitty vaccines that are probably not going to work. And you're like, well, I have to do this. Like that's that was the one thing about Trump I think everyone liked is that he didn't really have ties to politicians and owe people stuff. I mean, he's batshit crazy and should have never been president. But I think that's what people liked is that he didn't owe all of these people like favors. Or maybe he does. I don't know.
Yeah, like an outsider, because then you're not like greasing whatever I don't know what the terminology is,
Yeah,
but like you're not
I think
hobnobbing with people that are going to help you out financially.
yeah, I also think maybe if we just have a president who's so rich and doesn't need money from people, he would just do like the right ethical thing. But I guess if he's so rich, he's so far removed from poor people. I mean,
Well,
nobody cares about poor people. I know people on the left like to think they do, and I feel like they do a good job of pretending they do, but nobody cares about poor people.
no. Um, I'd like because yeah, I do like the idea of somebody that's already financially independent, but it like especially with him, didn't his family have like a background of being completely racist to uh people of color
Yeah, I'm
tenants?
not saying he was a good choice, but like maybe somebody like The Rock. But also, why would you want
The
this
Rock.
job? It's the worst job that you can have. I would never like if I was a rich movie star and they offered me to be president, I would turn it down like they just offered me a dog walking position. Like, not that it's a bad job, it's just like something I don't want to spend my time doing. I
Oh,
have
I
like
would
two of my own dogs. I don't want to walk other dogs too.
no, I would hate it, but you do get a lot of vacation time.
But The Rock is making probably like 10 to 15 million dollars doing who knows what he's doing. He has like, I think, alcohol infused ice cream,
Mhm.
which I don't think I've seen before, but I'm just like, oh, he's getting paid so much money to do that. You think he wants to sit and talk about fucking the stimulus?
Yeah.
It's just like I would never do if I was, because people were like, well, they should have Oprah do it. And I'm like, she's not, and I was like, I would love that, but she's not going to want to do it either. Like, why
Yeah.
would you want to be in the public eye that much? Because she's kind of not, she kind of retired and you see her around a little bit, but I wouldn't want to deal with that shit. I'm like, I'm rich. I need what I have. Too bad everyone else is poor. And that's just the way it is. Like, I would never be like, let me try and change this government that's archaic and like, everyone kill yourselves.
Well, there's no way of I feel like there's no way of changing it. I just feel like I've worked in businesses or corporations before where it's so like inundated with a lot of like toxic people and you're like maybe I can try to make things better and you're like you can't and then you make things worse for yourself.
Well, I think if you have every party in position, like the president's liberal, the Senate and Congress is liberal, then you can get stuff passed. Or you could do it if it's the other way. And I don't know if necessarily making abortion like I know one of the left thinks you should be able to have like not everyone like you should be able to kill an abort a baby unborn baby like at 8 months, and you're like that
That's
doesn't
really
seem.
rare.
But I know two comics who had a conversation where one of them said, "So you believe a baby should be able to be killed the day before it's born?" And she said, "Yes." Like
That's
there.
crazy.
I know that's an extreme example of people, but there are people that believe there should be like no term abortion like limits, and that's.
Oh, well those are for like very specific cases that are
I know this
awful.
is no. This was a person who just thought like you should be able to abort a baby whenever, like
Oh. Well,
8 months, 8.5 months, like, and I know that person is not alone. There's not, I don't think everyone thinks like that, but I think a lot of people do, or like more than we would think that you should be able to have an abortion whenever you want, like 8 months.
mm.
Like, I think
Um
abortion and guns should both be legal, but they should also have limits. Do you know what I mean?
okay,
Like,
like you don't need an AK-47.
Well, I was talking to Fred, and because he was in the army, and I was like, they shouldn't have like semi-automatic weapons, and he's like, most weapons are like that, though. Do you know what I mean? Like they say like to outlaw that, but that's what most weapons are. It just means like like I guess one clip where you don't have to keep putting one bullet in or something.
Oh, yeah. Like, I guess
So
a
it's like
pistol is
maybe,
semi-automatic.
yeah. So I think when they say that, people are like, no, well, that actually is most of the guns. So my thing is you should have to wait to get a gun. Do you know what I mean? Like it shouldn't be harder to get adopt a dog from the ASPCA than it is to get a gun. Like right now,
I
if I
al
drove to Walmart, I could buy a gun in like Pennsylvania.
yeah, I always feel like if, people that don't want guns should get the guns, and then the ones that want guns shouldn't get them.
I mean, I think they would just rob the other people.
With
I just
what,
think
their
it should
bare
be.
hands?
I mean, there's knives. There's so many ways to like take stuff from people, but I think like you should be able to have a gun, but you should have to go through background checks. You should have to check people's Twitter to see if they're saying, "I can't wait to shoot everyone up." Like I know that's freedom of speech, but maybe that's not exactly what you should do. But you shouldn't just be allowed to get a gun. Like, do you mean like you shouldn't be allowed to go into a Walmart today and get a gun? Do you know if you want to adopt a dog, there's like a whole huge screening process. A
Yeah.
dog that everyone thought was garbage and was walking on the street, now you have to take a 3 month process to go get. And that might be exaggeration, but I have applied to. I remember when I had Marley, I applied to get a dog that was like really mistreated. I filled out all this paperwork. They never even got back to me. Do you know what I mean? So like, you're putting in so much work for it. They don't even get back to you to say, "Hey, this dog is just not right for you," or "We don't want to consider you at all."
Yeah, I remember with the whatever the Nashville bombing, the girlfriend alerted the police and they did nothing.
Which bombing was that?
Isn't
Oh, you mean the one
that
that just
crazy?
happened?
Yeah,
I thought you
like
were
it.
talking. I thought you meant like the "We Are Not Coming Out" bombing, like the Unabomber.
Oh no, yeah. Well, it's kind of like the same kind of guy. Like when you read the whole how it went down, and it's like was barely in the news that and then you see how much damage that guy did. You're like, this is insanity.
Yeah, that's when you said the bombing because we're talking about like guns and shit. I was like, maybe you're talking about an old bombing, and also like, yeah, there's so many bombings you don't even know which one. And it's funny because what did this happen a week ago or
It was on Christmas, around Christmas week.
wait? I thought you meant the storming of the fucking of Washington D.C. Which bombing is that? I don't even know.
There was a guy detonated a bomb in a van on a street in Nashville, and it completely wiped out the whole street.
Oh yeah, I
And
didn't hear about that.
yeah, and then he had put it was very like Batman villain kind of style because he had put like about 5 minutes before the bomb went off, it kept saying, "I will detonate in five," or started giving a warning, and then right before it detonated, he rigged it where it would play the song by Petula Clark called "Downtown," where it's like downtown. When the lights are da 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 da, you can
What a
always
weird song.
go. I know, it is so
What
weird,
would
so,
your song be if you were gonna detonate and kill a whole block?
yeah.
Well, think. I'm asking you. I don't. I think one of my songs would probably be like a System of a Down song. I feel like that seems like a System of a Down situation where people are just screaming, or a Metallica song.
Yeah. I would have to I would have to methodically think it out, but this is always the weird thing when somebody asks me a song or what like when I want to buy a song or purchase or stream something, all of a sudden I'm like, I don't know what to get.
Well, I just feel like in terms of violence, I also like "Hit 'Em Up" by Tupac. So that would maybe be another song I would play.
Maybe
I would just
I
have a
don't know,
couple of
Led
songs.
Zeppelin.
Maybe I'd have a couple of songs I'd play before it went off, just to give a mix of whoever on the street. I mean, Nashville, there's probably not too many people into hip hop, but you never know.
Maybe some Garth Brooks in Nashville. I would
Ooh,
cater to
I
my
don't.
demographic.
How about some Dixie Chicks? They probably hate the Dixie Chicks
Oh
there.
my god. They I
Remember
yeah.
how remember how everyone was so mad at the Dixie Chicks because they went against the government, and now if you like the government, everyone hates you.
Yeah. Well, their
Or if
career
you
got
like
like
the government, if you like Trump,
yeah.
like everyone hates you.
Oh yeah, you get blacklisted if you're a Trump voter. It's really interesting.
It's so interesting because I wonder if that will happen with the next. I mean, I guess if he doesn't get impeached, he can technically run again.
Yeah. Um, and it'll be like another, hard battle like it was for this one.
Yeah, I mean, Biden should have been able to win really easily. Like it was pretty close. It should have not been very close.
Yeah, and he gained more voters and more voters from the like Black and Hispanic community.
Yeah, and I don't know why nobody is like doing, I guess, research to see why. Like why? Do you know? Because there is a reason. It's interesting, and I would like to know why. Like he gains more voters that are Black and Hispanic. I don't know. Maybe they're more conservative or religious, but that is interesting to me. And I would like. I mean, if he became president again after this, I feel like he's just gonna go into the White House and be like, "Oh, I fuck," like almost like Louis J. Gomez, like I fucking told you I was coming back. Don't you just see him going kind of nuts? Like if he comes back for a second term in 4 years from now.
That would be so wild because I don't think that's ever been maybe it was done back in like the John Adams years or whatever, but
I think he can. If he doesn't get impeached, I think he can run again.
do you think when that happens, like he's putting his like furniture and tanning bed in a storage facility, that way he can bring it back out when he gets back in again?
I think he's using that on a daily basis anyway. I don't think the tanning bed is something he's going to put away. I think it's something he's going to have in his house, like that he goes and tans in. Honestly, there is something nice to looking tan, but I don't know what he's doing that he looks orange. Is he just doing it too much?
I think spray tan.
Spray tan is the worst. Yeah, he has to go in the bed. I remember when I was getting going to prom and I was like tan. It was so weird. Like I had this idea that I was going to go tanning. Meanwhile, I never even went like to the beach really. So it was so weird that I was so tan at my prom. And my dad told me that if you go to a tan, he was like, there's a case where this woman was going to the tanning salon so often that she melted the insides of her organs. And I was
Yeah,
like, I'm
I've
willing
read
to take
that.
that risk. Is that even true? I thought he made it up to try and scare me.
It's like one of those, what do they call them, a suburban legend or whatever. It's like there's been no factual case of it, but it's just like been passed down as it like somebody knows somebody that some nobody knows somebody.
There's got to be a town of all those people where everyone knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody, and they just live in a house like, I'm this person where my organs shut down and I died and then came back to life. Or maybe their husband to spread the like. You're right. There's always that person that's like, I don't know about this specifically, but I have heard that so and so and so and so has it.
Yeah. Or like you hear that sometimes with Hollywood stories where they're like, yeah, he was just like a nobody working in the mailroom and then he slapped his script down in front of Spielberg
And
and
you're
the
like, give me
guy
his fucking
hired.
name. Give me his fucking name. I want to call him right now. Who is it?
No, and then you're always like, well, I'm pretty sure you left out a lot of details that he was able to do that. He must have been
Where he had to
somebody.
blow a lot of dudes behind a dumpster to get his script into Scorsese's hands.
Yeah. Or just like his dad is best friends with him. Like people leave out those
Right,
details.
right. Where he's in the mailroom working, but not that hard because his dad's best friends with like Michael Bay or something.
Yeah.
You ever see those situations where someone's rich and they just get a job because their dad wants to teach them a lesson, and then they always suck at the job, and you're like, hey, teach him a lesson like in your garden. Why is everyone else who's getting underpaid have to pull this guy's slack now, and he can't get fired because he's the boss's best friend's son.
No, I worked with a company that had the boss's son work and he just like would come and go. He would come in and make breakfast he'd come in at 9 in the morning and then make breakfast for about 2 hours in the kitchen because we worked in the downstairs like
That sounds right.
apartment. And then he would leave early and then you're like you're supposed to like answer phones and file and he just never did any of it.
Did he get fired, or did he eventually just sell a script?
No, I don't know. I don't think he got fired, but I'm pretty sure he'll just get the keys to the company.
But somebody like that doesn't ever know what they're doing still. Like I worked at a company with this lady who kind of knew how the whole office ran and she got a little lazy. So she forgot how to do some of the important stuff that she had delegated, and then she ended up losing her job security and getting fired.
That
So
sucks.
she's kind of old. She's now living in Florida and is like a huge Trumper. Like so much to the point where I read her stuff and I'm like, Jesus, Christine, like it's bonkers.
No, I was
Because
reading a
there
thread.
there are people that like voted for him and are just like, yeah, man, this is too far. Like I can't support this guy. But then there are people who are like, no, this guy is doing what we all should have been doing this whole time. And you're like, you are batshit crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It is like I don't. It is weird where you're like, I don't understand how you can support this guy with his crazy antics. But I'm like that was I was talking about that with my mom with like stuff like Fox News that I feel like that kind of news took a hold of my dad because he was basically libertarian, but I know he wouldn't have necessarily voted for Trump, but like watching that shit all the time, he ended up like I almost felt like he ended his life with where he was pro-life instead of pro-choice, where that wasn't what he was beforehand.
I don't know. My dad died too young before I had any of these conversations with him because I would have loved to ask him any of this stuff. He died when I was like 21 or something. And as a kid, I just wasn't talking about abortions and stuff. Like, I think if I asked my dad who he voted for, he would tell me, he wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
makes me think he would just vote Republican, probably.
Yeah, well, especially whenever somebody's like, "I'm not telling you who I voted for," it's usually the person that you get shamed for voting. So whenever they say that, you're like, "Oh, okay, I know
I
exactly
just
who you
wonder why
voted
there's
for."
when there will be a third candidate that's like kind of in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like there's enough people who are in the middle. Even if you're left leaning or right leaning a little bit, like you still kind of fall in the middle where like most people don't care about like abortion. Like the people that I know that are still Trump supporters, they just want more money out of their paycheck. They're like, I gay people should get married. Like, there's a lot of people like that. So they probably would fall into the middle somewhere. If Do you know what I mean? Like if there was that party, I just don't know. Is it just hard to start that third party? Like, why is it just not big enough?
I have no idea because it always seems like the middle or moderate is quite a huge population, like the
So
silent majority.
maybe you need a famous person to be this like the third party, and then that's how that will start. Maybe
Somebody
we'll have a
cool.
conversation with The Rock and see if he'll do it.
Well, he's very accessible on Twitter, so you can just, like, reach out to him because I've seen so many friends have, like, retweets from him or,
Really?
he's added them, unless his, assistant's really good at replying on social media.
That might be.
But I
I
also
remember
feel like celebrities have so much downtime that they can easily reply to all their social media.
I feel like The Rock is working out 23 hours a day. Like I follow him and I'll like look at his stuff. He's just working out all the time
Yeah, that's a full-time job.
to keep your body like that shredded. And then he has like a cheat day where he just eats like I'm eating every day. I'm like, oh, let me see what I should eat tomorrow. But I mean, I guess because he's a huge dude, he can actually eat a lot. Like he'll just have big thing of this, then like big thing of cookies, and that's like his cheat day. But he's working out probably, I mean, 5 hours a day. I mean, he's so ripped.
Well, I know there's this girl that I, went to school with, and then I just caught up with her on Facebook, and now she's become a bodybuilder in the last year, and her body is amazing, and she expressed kinda told you what she did to get to it. She works out, like, 3 to 4 hours a day.
It's not worth it. How do you even have a job? Do you know what I mean? Because if
I
you're working
don't
out,
know.
if you go to work 8 hours and you're traveling at least a half hour each way, that's 9 hours.
I know, and she's
Then
a
if you
mom too.
right, so 9 hours there and then 4 hours working out, that's 13 hours. Then I mean, your kids have to take at least 2 hours a day. I don't know. That seems low.
Yeah. Uh
Are they
Like,
old enough for
nothing's
kids?
neglected. Yeah, they're old enough where they could probably stay at home by themselves or, one can take care of the other.
So weird to like try and not just be in shape, but to try and get like a bodybuilder shape in your like 40s.
I mean, I feel like I would have to put in that amount of work just to maintain having an okay body. Because I just feel like I
What
don't
can
know
you do
what
for
it
4 hours?
I don't know. I already hate working out for an hour. So I try to minimize it to 30 minutes because it's just like
So
boring, and it takes up a chunk of your day too.
it does, but right before the pandemic, I was doing kickboxing classes and I loved it because they were half hour classes. It was 2 blocks from my house. I did it and you like at first I sucked at it and then I started getting good at it. And you do lose a lot of weight, especially I was like eating no sugar, no white flour, like no junk food. And I lost so much weight doing that. And then you see like just staying home every day. You're just, and I'm not
You're
making great health choices in terms of food, but like I really did enjoy that. And I guess what I like the most is that it was just a half hour. And it's like you can do anything for a half hour.
Yeah, half hour is a manageable amount of time to work out. I saw a YouTube ad for this lady saying, "I can get you fit in 7 minutes a day," and I was like, "What?" That
Show
sounds
the
like
rock.
bullshit.
Show the
I know.
rocket.
I know. Well, like, what else is he gonna do if he doesn't
What
work out?
wait, what did you look into the 7 minute a day workout?
No, because it's just a YouTube ad, and then you're like, "Oh, one of those long ones where you're like, she's not gonna show me her 7-minute workout. It's like you have to go to their website and you probably have to like sign up for their newsletter, which costs a little bit of money that I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. When you could just
Just
go
try
online on YouTube and there's so much more free shit.
or just try working out for 7 minutes every day and see, like, do it for like a month or so and see what your results are. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you start doing climbing stairs for 7 minutes a day and it doesn't do anything, then you know it's not that.
Well, the tech or what got like grabbed my attention is she's like, uh, if you're running, you don't lose weight, you're actually gaining weight or whatever. And I was
Like
running and
gaining
there,
muscle.
not even muscle, your body ends up like eating more because it's turning or burning fat. And then you're not even on the proper diets that you end up getting fatter or not. You're not losing weight. That's the thing. And I have
Really?
to tell you, I wasn't losing weight and I was running 3 miles a day, 5 times a week during quarantine. And just like, nothing was changing.
So what did you start doing?
Well, now I have plantar fasciitis or whatever, and it hurts so bad to run that I've just been doing yoga for an hour off of YouTube, which has
Did
been
you?
quite nice.
Yeah, to be able to just sit in
Free.
your room. Yeah, it's free. You could sit in your living room.
I'm just in child pose for an hour.
Well, especially if you live in New York City, you don't have a tremendous amount of room. So I think it was Micah that was. Remember we had Micah on, and I think she was looking up like exercise to do in jail because
Yeah.
like you have that much space.
No. Well, yeah, you're not, I can even do it in a hotel room, and I did it in a hotel room on the side of the bed where the bedside table is, and then there was a wall, and I was like, it was nice to know that
In
I could
that little
do it in the
area.
room. Yeah, I don't have to go to a gym. And it's actually really hard because you're doing all these like kind of squats, and then you don't think that holding your arm like this would hurt, but your shoulders hurt after 30 seconds of doing
Of course, especially if you're not used to just standing like that. Do you know what I mean?
that.
It's like
No.
a pose that's not normal. Like, do you remember going on flights and having to put your luggage up top, and if you didn't get a thing fast enough, you're like, my arms hurt.
I know. Like one time I did a yoga class with my friend in LA, and it was a very low key one, but all you had to do is just do this while sitting down. And after like 2 minutes, it probably wasn't even 2 minutes. It must have been 30 seconds. I had to hold my arm. Like, remember when you're in class
And you had
and
to hold your arm with your other hand. I
yeah,
remember
you're
that
like, what is
fondly.
that? Yeah. And you're like, that's a workout?
And also, what was so important that I need to raise my hand like that? It just makes
Being
no
like a
sense.
ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, it's just such a. I feel like I probably did that to go to the bathroom. There's no way that somebody asked for the answer to a question and I was holding my arm up like that.
No. Yeah,
Remember
I
your
don't know
teacher would get
why.
mad. Remember your teacher would just like give a speech, and in the middle of it, you would just raise your hand when she didn't ask any questions, and she would get upset. And I feel like that's when you do that move like that. You're just
Ooh, ooh. Like
you got kind of
really
lucky though.
like intense.
If you were against the wall though, you could kind of hold your arm up. I
Yeah.
remember doing that as a kid. My parents had air conditioning in their room and we didn't. So I'd be so hot at night. I would just put my arm up against the wall for any coldness because the walls are always pretty chilly. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would fall asleep at night.
That's why
It's
I
like,
always like the cool side of the pillow.
yeah, you just keep flipping it over because it
Yeah.
resets itself. None of this stuff is true.
No. What?
Um, that the pillow resets itself, but I do that where I'll just like flip it over and it does feel cooler. I don't know why. Is it just because your dumb head's not on it and your head's hot?
Yeah, I guess so. You do give off so much heat. Like, isn't it weird when you sit on the train and somebody gets up and there's a seat free and then you sit down and it's so warm that you
It
can
feels like
see?
pit,
Yeah.
and then
And
it
it's
is,
kind of gross.
but you're like, I'm stuck here now.
And they're like
Some
no other place to sit down.
well, sometimes people run really hot or really cold. Like Zuzu is really warm. If she's under the covers with you, she's like a heater. So in
Yeah.
the winter it's nice, but in the summer it's just like get off the bed.
I know, you're like, it's too much. You're like, they're like little heat bombs. Sometimes, like, you'll have your friend in their car and they're sitting in the passenger seat and their side of the window is fogging up because they are releasing so much heat.
So what do you say to them? Hey man, look what you're doing to my windows. Can you shut up for a bit?
I know they're just like little heaters in your seat.
I always like stories when comics say they've gone on the road with like a headliner that's kind of big, and the headliner, like, you learn in the car, say it's like a 3 hour ride, and they don't say one word to you. That's gotta be so uncomfortable where you're just, because you can't just be like, so how have you been? Or, you know what I mean? Especially if they don't give any like back and forth with you. You're like, all right, so we're just taking a silent ride.
I sometimes I do not mind that. Like sometimes when I go get my hair cut, I'm just like, I don't want to talk. I just want my
That's
hair
true.
cut and just zone out. But and then I remember one time getting a ride from it was for the in Jamestown, New York, that comedy museum or whatever. And they got set up a ride for me to get to the airport, and it was about an hour, hour and a half ride. And the guy was like, "You can,"
Yeah.
he was like, "You can sit up front." And I was like, I
No,
didn't have the
that's
courage to say, "I wanna
different.
just sit in the back, lie down, and not talk to you."
Yeah, I guess I mean like a comic that you're working with that like you're maybe excited to work with, because I remember someone had a funny story about working with a comic, like a big comic who just like sat in the back like they were a cab. And they didn't talk at all, so he tried putting the music on, and then they asked that the music be turned off. And then like when he went to the shows, he did like a good job. And then I guess he wanted to like sit in front, and then the comic was like, "No, you got to sit in the back now." That was so funny. It's like a good
Yeah.
story.
No, I know. I love those stories, and I do you know who the comic is?
The
Not
famous comic,
not that
the
I'm gonna
famous.
just say it on the pod, but, like, afterwards.
I'll tell you who it is. I can't remember right now, but if you tell me a bunch of people, I'll say it's that person. I can't think of his name right now. That's like an old comic.
I know there's so many. I remember when I first started doing stand up, I always thought it was interesting because the manager of the last stop would always tell me people that he was like, I would never work with that person again. And a lot of it was just like people that wanted to change their hotel room over and over again or not be put in the hotel that they put him up in.
I hate when you're, well, I learned a lesson though. When you check into a room, ask not to be by the elevator or by like this station where the maid stuff is, because it's so loud in the morning. And you know, you're going to sleep sometimes 2, 3 o'clock. If they
Yeah.
start at 7 or 8, you're just like, I think Phil Hanley had like a story about how he asked to not be near that maid's, um, I guess, closet. So I started asking to not be by the maid's closet.
Well,
So
that's
I
smart.
picked
I
up,
never think of that.
yeah, and you also, if you're right by the elevator, you'll hear the elevator all night. It's also pretty easy to get a room. I remember one time I was right by the elevator and it was so loud, and I asked them, they were like, "Yeah, I think they were only putting the comics up in those shitty rooms." And then I did get my room changed because I, for some reason, the sheet came off and it just looked like somebody had peed on the entire bed.
I hate
Like
when the
under,
fitted
like,
sheet comes off.
yeah, that came off, and I just went to go make it, and then I was like, this looks like a ton of piss. So I told them, but they just moved me
Please.
to another room that was right near an elevator, but at least didn't have a piss bed. But yeah, there's always something disgusting in your room where you could be like, I need a new room.
Well, I've heard that a lot of hotels don't clean that comforter on the bed.
That comforter is definitely never being cleaned. I mean, it's so gross what you're actually sleeping in, because they probably don't change that under pad either.
Yeah.
I
Well,
would I would rather go to a place that's like, hey, if you want a new comforter, we're gonna charge you $10 extra. Because how much could it actually cost to wash a comforter? Not that much.
no.
So if
At
they're
least
like, we're gonna,
once in a week or something.
yeah, but you want it to be washed before. Like if the person stayed there before you, like for a week, that's fine. But like I want my own clean comforter. I will pay you an extra $10. It's kind of like when McDonald's was making those nuggets and they were like, nobody knew what was in them, and then we finally demanded that we have chicken nuggets with like white meat in them, and then they were like, guys, now all of our chicken nuggets have white meat. I don't know why we're not doing the same thing with clean comforters in every hotel room. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
so gross.
Well, now with COVID, they, like, put that seal on the door as if you're, like, the first time opening the hotel room door. Like, it's
They
brand
could
spanking new.
That's hilarious. Like, you could just throw your phone in the, toilet because no one else has used it. Remember Todd Barry had that funny joke about, like, somebody threw their phone in the toilet, and they're like, "Don't worry, it's clean." And he was like, "Oh, were you at the unveiling where it was the first person that cut the ribbon on the toilet? Because like, the toilet's not clean."
No, it's horrific. I also wish I could bring a mini blue light with me and see how much jizz is everywhere.
You would if you saw jizz everywhere, you would never sleep. Like, that's one of those situations you don't wanna know how much jizz there is in the actual, like, hotel room.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
it's so gross. Like, you think
It's
about how much we were traveling and all of the cum we were just probably sleeping in
especially
and
all the
walking.
male comics that stay in these hotels.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if someone's young, like, I remember when I was dating somebody who was, like, 18, if we stayed at a hotel, they just came on the floor. And, like, that's probably something a lot of other 18-year-olds are doing, just coming on the floor.
No, one time
Excuse
my
me, or, like, in
sister
the wall.
oh, yeah, like, I picture, like, taking a blue light and you would just see, like, handprints of jizz all over the walls. That's what I picture,
Probably.
like a crime scene.
Don't bring a blue light. You'll never sleep. I know I would never. I like sometimes you see that comforter and it's so old and like polyester, like underneath that weird. And you're like, this has never been washed ever.
No, it's disgusting, and the other thing that's, like, when I go traveling with Joe, he does not like the maid service coming in every day, so when we stay there for a full week and he just orders takeout all the time, we collect so much trash in our room.
Do you just put it outside your door?
No, I don't know why I just don't. I should because I think you can, but it just seems like an excessive amount. Like we're
So
just
you
like,
just leave. So this lady just comes in and it's like a fucking homeless person's den,
it's
where
so
there's just takeout
yes. I'm
carriers
like, how
everywhere.
much trash are we making? And I prefer it when I like it when the maid comes every day because I like coming back and then seeing everything folded nicely.
The comforter. That's the
Yeah.
weird thing is you can never really remake that bed.
No, I've tried and you're just like, how do they do it?
I don't know, but that's gotta be probably one of the worst jobs. Do you know what I mean? The best case scenario is it's just a mess. The worst case scenario is someone's killed themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like you walk into a room and you're like, ugh, I had to find the guy that like hung himself from the fucking, ceiling fan or whatever.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
then
that makes sense. It's
I know,
I
and you probably can't even just be like, "Hey, I'm gonna need the rest of the day off because that like fucked my head up." You have to just go clean another room.
yeah,
That's so
where
insane to me. Where like you're at work and you've just witnessed someone murder themselves, and now you have to just go clean another room.
I feel like that happens a lot just because I feel like people would rather kill themselves in a hotel room than have their family have to clean up their mess in the apartment or a
Probably
house.
though, yeah, but probably if somebody kills yourself in a hotel room, you probably get out of cleaning that room, right? Because it's probably like they have to call up the cops and use it as evidence. So I would actually hope everyone killed themselves in all of my rooms that I had to clean.
Like, they let you leave for the rest of the day, and you're like, "God, I hope I get a suicide."
You're like, I got 5 suicides today, so I'm done an hour early. But you know you're not gonna get paid for that extra hour. They're gonna make you do something dumb, like go clean out all the fucking like soap dispensers or something. Something dumb where they're gonna keep you at work for an extra hour and you're like,
Yeah, you're like, "You're on towel folding duty for the rest of the day," and you're like, "I can't mentally prepare for this."
are you allowed to listen to music at least? I feel like that does help if you can kind of listen to music while you're working.
I think they do. I mean, I worked in a hotel a few times and they were quite social. It was actually really fascinating because, like, the hotel that I worked at, they started getting short with the linens, and then I think you're allotted a certain amount on a floor. So all these housekeepers were hiding their linens because they didn't want the other housekeepers to start snatching theirs. And then the other weird story from that's where I found out that, like, a lot of they don't really clean the comforters that often, and then I also found out, like, most hotels have bed bugs. One or a few of the rooms, not all of them, but it is a constant problem that they're dealing with, and then the other one story that I thought was crazy is that a lot of hotels, especially in New York, are union workers, and so the lady that was in control of all the housekeeping, she ended up making a deal with them where she would let them work overtime to get that, like, time and a half pay that was, like, a crazy amount of money. Like, they make really good money when they're a union worker, and so she let them work overtime and then under the stipulation that she got half of their whatever the overtime pay was.
So they're just basically getting their regular pay.
A little more than regular pay.
Because it's like
All
time
they
and a
did was
half.
I know, but all they would do is just sit in a room and hang out.
Oh, okay. So they weren't actually working. Okay.
No.
That makes sense.
And then
I was thinking they're working for time and a half and she's taking half and they're getting less.
no, they would just sit in one room and watch TV. And then the hotel
That
had
sounds
no
pretty sweet.
idea. It was really sweet. And then they like the hotel company would give her money to go. This is why they were short with linens to give her they would give her the money, the budget, and she would keep half of it. I don't know why they were giving her cash or she
That
figured
sounds
out a way to turn it into cash. She would keep half of it and then then she would pay the linen companies and it wouldn't be the same amount so she could get keep half of it. And so she was just scamming them nonstop.
I kind of love this lady. Like, I know that sounds awful and it's shitty to work for her, but like, it sounds kind of great. Imagine your
Yeah.
boss was like, "Hey, I'm going to pay you time and a half, and I'm going to take." I wonder how much money that lady got. Because if you have enough people working underneath you, that's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I She did pretty well, and then the crazy thing is she just ghosted the company, but with, like, labor stuff, when you go to another hotel, like, we found out she ended up getting a job at another hotel 2 weeks later. Even if you could put the hotel down as a reference, all they have to s they can't say anything negative about you, all they can say is, "Yes, she worked here from these dates." That's all you can
I
say.
don't even think you can ask their salary.
Yeah, or why
You
they
can't.
left or, like, under
So
what
what's the point of
reasons.
it?
I have no idea. That's why I've never understood why you use, I guess, references is just to be like, to make sure that they work there and they have had the past job experience.
But you could even put references that are not your past job. You could just put like your best friend.
Oh, yeah. I've done that a few times or managers of previous jobs that I became friends with.
Yeah, I mean, I had this one boss that I got fired for being sick a lot, and then I used that place as a reference, and I just used a woman that I was friends with in the place. So like
Yeah.
instead of boss, you really like even when you call for references, you're really just taking a risk. You might as well just hire somebody, see how you like them, and then fire them. But that's such like a long process of interviewing. Then that person gives their job 2 weeks, and they come there 2 weeks later, and then you have to give them at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month, just to see if this person's okay. It's like such
Yeah.
a long process of seeing if people are like pieces of shit or not.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And then most of the time, I don't know, when I worked at the hotel, I was like, I don't think we ever hired anyone that was great.
You know, if you're not offering a decent salary, you're like you do get what you pay for. So if you're offering shitty money, then like you're just not going to get people that are, you know, because what's the risk to them? If you're offering a shitty salary, they're like, I could get this at another place. So
Yeah.
it does pay. It does really pay and benefit you as a company to spend a little bit more and get like the better tires for your car.
Oh, definitely. Cause like, I would have to hire for this job under my management of, it was the mini bar guy that had to go into every room and count every single mini bar item and make sure that nobody was, like, sticking in, like, little liquor bottles and that they filled it up with water, and that pay was so horrible and that job was so awful and tedious and boring and isolating that I felt like it should have got paid more, that, I we could never retain anybody in that position, so I would have to be the mini bar person several times a week, and
Did
it
you
was
get that extra pay?
know. It was the worst. I mean, I got paid pretty well for this job that never did anything. I think I made 50,000 a year, and all I did basically was I the only thing that was annoying is I had to get there super early in the morning because I worked the day shift. And then so I would just be there, make sure that everything ran smoothly for about an hour, 2 hours, and then I would go downstairs and then just be on social media all day waiting for a problem to happen. And then occasionally I would have to do the mini bar
The
rounds,
mini
which
bar check. I remember people would
is
say
so
like
awful.
when I was in Vegas and they put me up in that expensive hotel, like if you lifted something up for too long, they would know and you would get charged for it. I was like, is that a real thing?
No. And the reason why mini bar is so expensive is because you can fight every single charge on that and you will win. Because there's no way of proving that you took it or that maybe it was the person previously and it never got accounted for. It's such a bullshit scam that so if you ever do like a mini bar or decide to get one little thing, you can totally fight it and they'll take it off because they'd rather just deal with taking off $18 off your bill and then having you come back.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I just went to when I went to go pick up Peggy, we were driving back and I think we stopped in North Carolina somewhere. We stayed at a Best Western, and I don't know why, because I always think Best Western is garbage, but it was better than like I thought an Econo Lodge, which was
Yeah.
like Econo Lodge, Best Western, and another like Econo Lodge type of place. And it was like double the money, and they were like, "This is the last one on this dumb website," and I was like, "Oh my god, I have to take this dumb thing." And I get there, and there's one other car, so like they do that, and they know exactly what they're doing. And I go in, they're like, whatever they said, and they're like, "There's no dogs," and I was like, and this one I just had gotten Peggy, and I was like, "Hey," I was like, "Can I cancel my reservation?" And they were like, "No," and I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "I'm just gonna take a risk." So we went like the back door, brought her in, and the room was just gross. Like there was like all marks in the like in the tub where you're like, is that poop? Is it just scratched? It was like the worst room. So I complained to I tweeted at them, and I don't have a big enough following for them to do much. So they did call me, and they were like, call our this number up to talk to them. So I called this lady up and I talked to her, and she's like, well, I'm sorry that like the room like kind of smelled like smoke, but we didn't switch just because we had the dog with us, and it was like we were already tired. She's like, well, thank you for doing this. This really helps us, with future patrons. And I go, wait a second, what about me? I'm not doing this for other people. I don't give a fuck about other people's stay. Like, I want you to do something for me. And she was like, oh, okay, well, we can look into I was like, well, you think I'm just being like a good Samaritan? That's so
Yeah.
bizarre to think I'm just caring about the next person. So
I
she's
guess
like, well,
she's
we'll
like, oh, I was
what?
just saying that it feels like she thinks she works at a hostel.
Yeah, it's also weird to be like, hey, thanks for updating us so we can be like more prepared for other people. I'm like, why would I waste all of my time doing this? Like, I'm just like not a good Samaritan. It's just bizarre. So they didn't. So she was like, well, I'll ask the hotel if they'll refund your money. And I knew they weren't because they had one other car there. They probably desperately need that money. She's like, all right, well, we can give you like a $25 voucher. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? So was able to white lady them up to a $50 Amazon gift card, but it took some finessing.
Yeah, but you're good at that.
I am good at that. So when people complain about white ladies, I'm like, you're probably talking about me getting stuff from the manager, but also like I got $50 now.
Well, that's like Abby Rosenquist has a joke that I like of as much as people hate white women, you need us to change the temperature of the room or to like get something
Makes
done in a
sense.
restaurant where you're like, I guess because we have the time because our husbands make the money that we can
I
have
don't.
paying for stuff.
I'm just petty. Yeah, I don't know. I also feel like white women are so unlikable that we're going to start being likable again.
Well, I hopefully like it will become cool again, like disco.
I don't know. We're just going to come back like bell bottoms. I think
Well, like,
everyone, first of all, it's also so easy to get anyone to like you if you just pretend you hate white women. It's
oh
just
yeah,
like the
yeah.
easiest way to be like, "Aren't we the worst?" And then everyone's like, "This white lady's cool. She hates everyone that's white." And you're like, "I'm just saying this so
I
that like."
know. Like 5 minutes later, we're pulling white woman shit that they would hate.
But they're like, "This is kinda great. I'm glad you taught me this."
Thanks for at least you're aware of it. And I'm like, no, I know. But I told you I got another dumb white bitch audition.
Yeah, I know, you told me about this. You should just make one reel of you being a dumb white bitch in different scenarios.
I know, and be like, here you guys go. Cast me in whatever dumb white bitch role that you want me in.
Okay, so do you have to read the lines and do the actual acting out of it?
I do, and I went and I looked at a compilation of Karens online of being
Mhm.
so I think I have a few outfit choices that I'll go with, but
Well, I
I'm reading for cat lady, white lady.
so cat lady is just probably like a white t-shirt or like a shirt that has cats on it or something with Florida written on it. Like any of those shirts that someone's brought you back because you watched their cat while they were away.
Yeah, and I figured I would look like I just got dressed out of a lost and found box because,
Jeans
I'm
that are a
running
little too
errands.
big.
Yeah, or like, that photo they showed of that little grand lady or from the storming of the Capitol where she's holding like a big like a big gulp cup, and she's
Deli-
just in the lobby of the Capitol where you're like, that's
yeah,
I
that's how you
want to
have to
look like
dress.
that. Yeah.
But that's also kind of white trash. Like when they mean white ladies, they mean rich white ladies that are complaining.
Yes, but I think there's a whole like level of different kind of white ladies that everyone hates. Because there's the ones that are like, excuse me, you cannot sell lemonade out here on our in this neighborhood. This is not a neighborhood where you sell lemonade. There's those rich white ladies, but then you have the ones that are like at Walmart.
And they're like, you have 11 items and this is a 10 item or less line.
Yeah.
And you're like, stop counting my shit, Cheryl.
I know. And they're like, well, this is a free country.
I love when people say that. That's actually a pretty. Somebody had a really funny joke about it's a free country, but I think they quit comedy. And it was probably a smart decision for them.
Don't you wish that like it when you these people quit comedy and they have a few good jokes that you're like, can you like dedicate those to people or not dedicate
You could,
them, but like leave them in a will?
you probably could do that. I don't remember the rest of the joke, though. That's a problem. I just remember it's a free country.
I would if I was quitting comedy, I would definitely be like, you can have these. These are
Oh,
my jokes that you
I
can
would
have.
love it. And then I have to tell everyone Sarah gave me these jokes because she quit stand up.
Hey, there's no problem. I mean, tons of comics are always like, oh, when you're like, oh, I really like that bit, and they're like, oh, such and such helped me tag it or put a tag on it. Like it happens. So it's not
That's
the
how you're,
worst.
yeah, and that's how people are writing in a writing room. Like people are writing together. So I don't know. It's weird. There is a comic that I know won't take a like a tag or a punchline from anyone. And I'm like,
Really?
yes. Even I know one person had given him a tag that's like pretty famous and he wouldn't take it from them because he felt like the joke wouldn't be his.
Oh, well, that's great for that guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you tell me a tag to a joke, I'll be like, yeah, sure. Because
Yeah.
I, I guess like I feel like I'm funny enough that I could write more jokes, so it doesn't matter to me if you give me a tag. Also, too, when you ever like listen to yourself do stand up after and you think of other tags because you're like listening from a different angle and not telling it, it's kind of just all it is.
Yeah. I know I've never really I mean, I had to listen for the album, but like I will record stand up for years and be like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to like
There's so many sets
delete these.
that I've never listened to, and you're like, I'm just gonna delete that because it's probably something that wasn't great anyway.
I don't have a problem like editing a video that I'm in that doing stand up and then captioning it. For some reason I can like bypass it, but if I have to sit down and listen to my set, it'll be a set that I remember really having a good time, and then when I listen to it, I'm like, "This doesn't sound like I'm doing great."
Did you feel like that when you were listening to your album over and over again? That's how I felt.
Yes. Well, I just got the footage from my album and I was all excited, but they sent me the footage of the second show, which was like 14 people showed up, so it
Did
wasn't
you
that
ask them for the
great.
first one?
I did. I finally got it recently, so I'm going to put that together as my special.
That's a great idea. I'm sure
Um,
people will listen to it.
yeah, I'm just gonna like spruce it up a little, maybe put like it look like a film filter on it and then get like some cuts
Some cat,
where some cats, put
some
some
little cat just randomly sitting on your chair as you're taping
some
yours.
animation. Um,
I remember that girl that I don't know if she still listens to the podcast that was coming and was so excited to see you. And then it was like right around COVID. And she's like, hey, I'm scared of COVID. Does anyone want to buy my tickets? And we were like, hey, stop. Like, I got her point that it was scary and COVID was happening, but I also got your point where you're like, hey, this is my last chance to make this before we're going to go into COVID, like shut down.
fuck up. Shut it.
It's like you lost $12. Shut it.
Stop spreading this online. But now when I look back on hindsight, I remember being like this, over
That
dramatic.
lady was right.
Yeah, I think we should have shut down
But
at like a week earlier at least.
it all happened so quickly. Like the fact that we all went on that cruise is insane.
Absolutely, especially when they were like, "Have you been to China recently?" And we had one comic that was like, made the deadline by like a week, and you're like, "That doesn't seem like enough."
Yeah, I think it should have been like if you've been to China in the last year, you can't come on.
Yeah.
Because what does it mean if you've been there for 29 days instead of 30? Like you can't get it in 29 days?
Yeah, I don't that was like crazy to me. Like you're like, I can't believe that guy made it onto the thing. And then I think about how I didn't really think about it then, but I remember there was a guy, I couldn't figure out how many doors down he was, and it just sounded like there was a guy in his room that never left that just had
Oh,
whooping
that
cough
had
the whole
COVID.
time. It
Yeah.
was
Well, remember
so
that guy that
insane.
died?
Yeah, we don't even know from what.
Yeah, they didn't tell us what he died from. I think he had a seizure, they said, but who knows if that's true.
Yeah. No one knew. And now when you're like, what a crazy thing that we were on a ship that had to turn back because somebody died.
Well, also too, we had never seen like because they had SARS and all these other kind of I guess they're also COVID-19 diseases, right?
Yeah.
So none of them had been like and Ebola, none of them had been like this. So I think we all were kind of like, this isn't that big of a deal. Like especially in February.
No,
I
I
remember,
just thought this was going to be a thing that only a few people got, like the bird flu, or just like it was big in
right.
China, but not here.
Just like child labor.
Yeah. Sweeping the
Um,
nation.
yeah, that's what I thought. But I did go to my doctor to get a flu shot because I was like, hey, do you think it's weird? Like, I'm going to be traveling and doing these shows. And he's like, well, I just had somebody who came in and she's supposed to be going to Italy. Like, remember, Italy got hit really hard. She's like, she's supposed to be going to Italy. And I told her she shouldn't be going. And I guess, where was I going? This was right when I was doing the tour with Louis. So he's like, where are you going? What cities? And I told him, he's like, they haven't been hit that hard yet. He's like, but this is going to be pretty serious. And I was like, okay. And then I was like scared a little bit. And then I remember being at one of his shows and going to sit into the audience where there was like 4,000 people. And I was like sitting on like the end seat. And I was like, this is dumb, Adrian. I was like, just go behind the audience and watch the show. Because for a second
No.
you forget that like everyone's laughing, everyone's like coughing. You're like, oh, I wonder if people had it at that point yet. You know, it's just like you never know. It's so crazy. And we're still in it.
Yeah, and then it's like mutated again, that they say there is a more contagious, but then you're like, but what in what terms? Like now you can't be 6 feet? Do you have to be 12 feet? Or can we be is it in a room no longer than 5 minutes? Like nobody's really specific about how
And I think
contagious it is.
nobody really probably knows, or they are just trying. It's like, I think when you find out, like if a person's rich and they find out there's like something awful going to happen first and they dump all their stocks, that's what they're doing right now. I think all these people were like, they're just trying to figure out their own life first before they try and help like the low lives like us. So for like right now, they're probably doing whatever they need to do for themselves. And then they'll tell us like in a month. It really does suck not having money and being kind of like poor. Like
Oh
it
yeah, we're
really does suck.
trash.
We're trash. Nobody cares about us. And instead of turning like poor black people and poor white people against each other, we should just ban forces because no one cares about any of us. And that's very clear. But they make it a race division so that we don't realize like we should just join forces and take over. Like if poor
Oh
people
yeah.
stormed everything, we could get some stuff done probably.
Well, I just think of like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, had shut down like wineries, and he owned one winery and he kept it open.
Well, there's a lot of people like that. You know, like didn't Nancy Pelosi go get her haircut without a mask on? I mean, they're all fucking scumbags. I hate all of these politicians. They're all the worst.
Yeah, and then there was those ones right around COVID that they got briefed about it, and then they they sold a
All
lot
of
of
their
their stocks,
stocks,
and then they bought some stocks that knew that were gonna rise because of
like
COVID.
Zoom
Yeah.
and Amazon. I mean, Amazon's always doing well, but I saw something that said Amazon CEO is going to go broke, and I'm like, how? How's that
Yeah, I have no
possible?
idea. I don't know. I was thinking when they give us their stimulus check, I was like, you might as well just give it to Amazon. I just spent $200 there yesterday and I bought all these things for my home that would make it better, like a DVD holder,
You
a
still have
recycling.
DVDs?
Yeah, Joe still has them, and then I
That's
just
pretty cool.
we just don't want to get rid of them because it's like money, and we also like a lot of those films,
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
and then like just like a bunch of household items that it's just easier to get it in one thing, and there's no Walmart here, so
Yeah, like
I was
I've
like, just
ordered.
give it.
I mean, there was a point I was ordering one thing from Amazon like a day, and I could have just ordered it all at once. Where they were making a stop here every day for like cotton rounds to take me. I mean, like cotton rounds to like use for your face. Like they made a delivery for that, which
Yeah.
probably cost $3. But like, what a waste!
For getting cotton rounds.
What a waste for this guy to come to my house just to deliver cotton rounds. Do you know what I mean? At least you got $200 worth of stuff. Like I had just ordered that, and they came for just that.
Well, I would assume that like so many people are ordering for Amazon in your neighborhood
Yeah.
anyway that it was just like what it's just like one little errand that he can do.
Yeah, but before pandemic, I would just go to the store and buy that stuff. But now I'm
I
just like,
know.
well, I'm just gonna buy like anything like that. I ordered soap.
Yeah, well, the annoying thing in New York is like, at least in Astoria, is if I want a whole bunch of different items, I have to go to 5 different stores, and it's such a frustrating ordeal. And we don't have a Walmart or like, I
A
don't
Target
know,
there,
a
maybe.
Target or a place. And then if I do, it's like deals and discounts, which sells you really shitty stuff sometimes. Like I bought Tupperware, and 2 of the Tupperware I found out were cracked. That it's just easier to buy all this shit on Amazon.
Yeah, my friend said that the guy, I don't know, Bezos, I guess brother, also is part of the company, and they have like a $12 million house in Scarsdale. My friend showed it to me on the phone. I was like, that's like a resort. It's so big that if you had a puppy in that place, you would probably not be able to find it for hours. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're so small, they can get into so many places. They could probably pee and shit your whole house up before you even found them.
Oh, yeah, and then it's like a full-time job, or you have to have a full-time staff there to manage that house to make sure it just doesn't turn into crap.
The weeds outside, like stuff falling into your pool. Do you know what I mean? Like anything. It's like there's so much upkeep to that house. I mean, I guess you're so rich it doesn't matter. You have people to do all that shit. Um,
Yeah.
my friend just texted me that's in Texas. She goes, it's snowing so much. It's like, what is going on that it's snowing in fucking Texas right now?
I know it
I just
only snows
text.
every 5 years there, but for it to be in Austin, that's pretty south for it to hit
She said
snow.
it's snowing so much
That's
because I
crazy.
just saw her text pop up as we're podcasting. I'm like, this whole world is gonna just fucking bomb. Like we're just gonna, it's gonna end, and I'm kind of like okay with it.
Yeah.
We
Well,
lost our showrunner. Me and Sarah, this show that we've been trying to make for 6 years. We had a producer and a showrunner. Now we lost the show. The good thing is the producer is awesome and we love him, but the showrunner just bailed on us, and you're like, God damn it.
did you feel like once, because he had a death in the family, that once that happened, that you're like, it didn't really feel like we were ever gonna see him again.
Yeah, it was like he kind of, like you said, he lightly ghosted us.
Yeah.
Kind of like what a guy does if he doesn't really like you. He uses like a death in his family as like a way to just stop talking to you.
Yeah. It
It's
always
so,
hurts.
yeah, like especially you're like, well, even in COVID now too, it's hard to even tell like what deaths are true or not because you can't really have funerals, I don't think. So like if you were dating somebody who was like, oh, my aunt died, and you're like, well, where is it? I want to send flowers. Like, do you know what I mean? Like now you'd have to be like, well, they're not really doing funerals. So you're just like, I guess I'm gonna have to believe that your family member died.
Yeah, I need a death certificate.
That's a great way to get out of a job is a death in the family. But people make a mistake of only taking 1 day off. And I think that's not smart. You have to take at least 2 days
Oh, yeah. Well, I know when my
for the
dad died, I
funeral
took a
and the
week off.
wake.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It takes a
especially
while
well,
to
a
get all
dad. That's a dad's a big one. But I mean, if you're gonna say like your aunt or whatever, I would say usually 2 days.
you can but if you're like my aunt that basically raised me.
Ooh, that's another good one. You're like my aunt that basically raised me died, so I'm gonna need like a week off. And then you come back and everyone's like, "How are you doing?" You're like, "Great, I just had a week off." And they're like, "Oh, I thought
And
someone died."
rested.
And you're like, "Oh yeah, that part's not that great, but the rest
Yeah.
was pretty awesome." It's so uncomfortable going to funerals and wakes. It's just like I remember when my dad died, and I guess we were all pretty upset and overwhelmed by it. But it is weird, like just sitting there waiting for people to come while you're just sitting and looking at your loved one who's dead.
Yeah, and I don't know, there's, like, food involved, and then it ended up being a
Well, the
hanging.
after,
Yeah,
after it becomes a hang, yeah.
yeah, we didn't do it because 'cause we're not religious and believe in an afterlife, so we didn't really do and we still haven't had a chance where all of us gotten together to spread his ashes, and that would probably be more of a private thing. So,
Yeah.
we just did a remembrance or, like, a wake, I guess is what you would call it, right?
Why don't you all just take a little bit of ashes and have it like in your purse? So your dad's always with you.
No, I would, like that, but it was really weird because before he died, uh he I we were talking because we've always joked. I was like, "Oh, Dad, do you want like a Viking funeral?" That we always joke because we grew up on a lake that we would send his body out onto a raft and then shoot an arrow that's on fire and then hope it like sets his body on fire.
Did
And
he
then
love that?
he usually would joke about that, but then like his I guess he knew he was going to end or his life was going to be over soon, that he actually got really serious about it. He was like, "No, I'd like my ashes to be spread over where you guys grew up."
Oh, okay.
So we have to do it like late at night because I don't think the like HOA is going to let us just dump
Where
ashes on a front yard.
so you have to go dump his ashes at some random person's house that lives there now?
Well, fortunately, I don't know fortunately, but, like, when we sold that house because we had to downgrade 25 years ago, the people that bought the house bulldozed it because they wanted to start over and build up new again because it was such an old house, and then something happened to them financially that they could never build on it, so it's just been an empty lot.
Oh,
So
okay.
the good thing is we wouldn't disturb, but it is like a residential area that they have security that usually drives up and down the around the lake to make sure there's no like hijinks going on.
Speaking of lakes, on Dawson's Creek, I think that Joey had to get in a boat to go to Dawson's house. And then she had to like trek through the woods to get home. Like he never walks her out. He just lets her go down like the stair, like there's like a ladder and then she
Yeah.
had to go through the woods because like they had a scene where they broke up. And she's just running for a while. And I was like, how funny would it be if she just got shot right now? So then she's like running to the creek to go paddle home. What an inconvenient relationship.
I would be like, like in New York when you're in Queens and you're dating somebody in Brooklyn, you're just like, this isn't going to work out.
Yeah, and I guess they live close by, but this creek is in between them. And that seems like a very big no sign to a relationship if there's a creek between you guys.
That is true, but remember how horny and obsessive you are when you were that age that you would waste so much time to go
Getting
be with
ready to
that
go
person.
some. Yeah, I guess you're right. It just seems like getting into a boat. I guess if you grew up like that in that creek, you're constantly on a boat rowing somewhere. But it just seems like a real, like, you get all dressed up and look nice. And now you're just rowing this boat to go
Yeah,
see.
and it gives you so much time to be in your head to weigh out is if this relationship is worth it, that I feel like there'd be times I'd be in the middle of my row being like, "Fuck this." Also, he
Hey,
should row to me.
well, he doesn't because she's like poor, so she has to go row to him because he has like the big house and she like lives with her sister. It's weird though. In the show, the sister is like unwed and has a baby out of wedlock with a black guy, and that's like the big news in the town.
Yeah.
Also, though,
Wow,
I
for
guess your arms.
Dawson's Creek?
Yeah, I guess like if you're rowing your boat to go see your boyfriend, your arms are gonna look amazing.
That is true. That's the best side of being poor is
Yeah.
that
They're like, yo, your arms look awesome. She's like, I've just been rowing to see my boyfriend because I'm poor.
and all the hand jobs.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They don't do much sex stuff yet.
No?
Anyway, I'm holding out for it.
God, I love shows with teenagers that are sex-based.
Well, the one girl, Jen, Michelle Williams, she's quite loose in the show.
Nice. Well, like, did you ever read Sweet Valley High?
Yes.
My sister and I loved the finally when they made it into high school.
And they were starting to fuck.
Yeah, there was the book where Jessica was, which was the slutty one. Elizabeth was the book smart one. Jessica was going to lose her virginity. And
Hmm.
it was so exciting. Like I was
You're
It was
just
the best
tearing through
thing ever.
pages.
Oh my god, my sister and I would read it to each other out loud in the bathroom because we thought it would be like funny to do over dramatic
Ooh, that
readings.
makes.
You know what? Let's make that a tier. I will find that book
And we'll read it.
and we'll
We'll read
read it.
excerpts from it.
We'll read excerpt. We'll make a little extra thing for it.
Those two sisters always reminds me of the two girls from Charles in Charge, where one was hot and one was ugly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's why. That's how I picture them in my head. One was hot and slutty, and the other one was like not as attractive and kind of dorky.
And kind of like whiny. Like Nicole Eggert was the way more fun one.
She was also in Baywatch,
Yeah.
and then I don't know what the other one's done, but she's
She's I
it
don't
sucks
know.
like to be on that show and they're like, hey, Nicole Eggert's gonna be like your hot sister, and you're gonna be like the dumpy one no one likes, and you're like, cool, at least I'm on TV.
Thank you. I always think about that with a lot of roles when people get it. You're like, ah,
Like the guy
it.
that got cast as Biggie, you're like, ooh. I mean, and he was better looking than the like original Biggie, but still, like, he's not a great looking guy, and like that's who you got cast as.
Yeah, where you're like, uh, it hurts. And I have to say, it hurts that I get just like casting notices to be the unlikable white bitch.
Well, I only get cast. I've gotten cast several times as a like either a lesbian or a gym teacher, which is kind of the same thing. One time I spent time with this guy like preparing for this role, and then they just gave it to Fortune Feimster, and I was like, yeah, just give it to her. Why are you making me even audition for this?
I know. Why are you making me work? Well, we were talking about earlier, like, you only get these notices when it's the one weekend you can't do shit.
Yeah, you were saying we haven't gotten any writing packets, and there are shows that are happening, and I think it's because we aren't going on vacation. That's when you get them, you said,
Oh yeah,
when you have a
usually
lot
the
of stuff
first
to do.
day. I remember being with CH, they would always be like, "Here's your packet." And it would be right when I was like in Florida doing a Key West gig where you're like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And it's when we were like hanging out with a friend that we haven't seen in ages and like it always felt like I got packets right when going on vacation.
I'll say this. Whenever I get a packet, if I put 100% in or 0% in, it's the same outcome. I don't get any jobs. So that's why I'm just like, I'm not going to even put any time into this because I already know I've already put so much time into packets where I'm like, this is really good. I spent a lot of time on it and then nothing happens. So you're like, I might as well just do the least amount.
I absolutely agree, but I we do find it funny that the 1 year that we have probably ample amount of time to work on a packet, we did not get one packet.
I did not get one packet. I don't even know that when they're saying people are getting jobs, there are jobs that are happening because a couple comics we know have TV shows coming out, and you're like, oh, nobody even asked if I'd like to submit to that. They didn't
No.
even pretend they wanted to see my garbage ideas. They're like, no, thank you. We're good.
I know, and we're not even in a position to go make friends with comics that are doing well to get asked to do their show.
No, I think there's a point where like some people are just buddied up with people who are like famous and have stuff happening for them, and we're just not in that friend place.
No.
Like
I
it's
get
weird now for me to try and become best friends with like
hey,
Michael Che. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no way for me to just ease into that.
organically.
Yeah, organically like become besties with him now. Do you know what I mean? Like we're just it's a pandemic. Like if we live near each other, I could do it. And I like him a lot. I think he's super funny and talented. But like
Yeah.
if we see each other, we'll talk. But I've never gone above and beyond to kind of make it into his friend circle.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be weird. You're just all of a sudden in his neighborhood constantly being like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
that's
I'm like, I
crazy."
baked cookies and I'm walking around wherever you live. Why don't we hang out? I think he'd be like, this is weird. I'd be like, this is weird. But just let me submit a packet to your next show.
I know. Because that's the only way that I feel like you get jobs is that you have to know people.
I am excited for his show because I do think he's really funny and I hope it's really good.
Absolutely. I don't what network is it on? I'm hoping it'll
I
be
think
like,
HBO.
"Oh, that's
Something I
better."
don't have, so I'll have to just like stay at somebody's house and watch 100. You ever do that? You go to someone's house that has like a streaming service you don't have and you don't really want to hang out with them. You just want to watch everything you can.
Yeah,
You're
that's
like, hey,
my
can you get
sister.
out? I'm really tired. It's 8 p.m. I'd really like to go to sleep. And then you're just up for 7 hours watching TV.
I know. It's kind of like when you were a kid or like finding out that somebody had a heated pool or something that you're like, "Hey, buddy."
Yeah, everyone's like their friend for the summer,
Yeah.
but
But then
no,
and
I'm
then
not
I feel like they
here.
know it and they don't care because they're like, "At least I have people coming over and hanging out."
That's true. It's really sad to have a pool and no one's pretending to be your friend. That's
I
like the
know.
worst. You're like,
That means
what am
you're
I doing?
awful.
What am I doing that people won't even pretend to be my friend for the pool in the summer?
Yeah, I don't you're just, I guess, atrocious.
That's probably the truth. Do you think we'll ever have pools?
No, I don't know. I really want one, but, uh, they look so fun. But in New York, like, what do you only get to swim out of it, like, 4 times a year.
Yeah, I mean, I would still like it because there's a couple of months you can do it. Like when I was walking around Larchmont, where all those people are rich, they had pools, and some of them were like in it. And I was like, that would be nice to go in a pool right now.
Yeah, it's, like, cool, and it looks good, and I like hanging out by a pool. Everything about being by a pool is just joy.
Just nice. Even if something terrible happens, you just go sit by your pool, and you're like, it's not too bad. You like barbecue some stuff for yourself and your family, and you're like, we lost money in the stock market, but like we still have this awesome pool, and like we're still rich. We're still
I
great.
know. I'd rather have, like, a pool and then a shitty house.
I would like to have just both be nice.
Yeah.
Like if I can, I would rather have like both of them be nice. It's funny when people have like pool houses and stuff, and you're like, I just want one regular house first.
Yeah.
Oh wow, something to really look forward to.
I was thinking about this the other day. Isn't it funny that back in like the early days of mankind that they thought Earth was just one long infinity pool?
Yeah, I guess that's so weird being an explorer and telling people about stuff. It's like being the first like on TMZ to drop a story. You're like, oh, we just
Yeah.
discovered another part. But that was when it was so lawless. You could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, you could really take advantage of a lot of stuff. If you
I
just
know.
had the guts to be like, "I'm pretty sure the earth is round," you would be successful.
But then you have all those flat earthers who think that it's not. And then like you have to go up against a bunch of men with money and you just give up because you're like, I don't have money for this. Like I recently I start watching the worst shows. Like I don't know what I'm watching like 16 and Pregnant on MTV.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, they're like 30 now, but they're like 16 on the show. And the one girl, Janelle, her and her mom have like vicious fights where like she'll push her mom, and her mom went to go get um custody of this kid. And then she's told the daughter, she's like, well, you're gonna have to go get a lawyer. This girl's like 16 years old. So she's like, well, I hope it's not that much money. So she goes to the lawyer, and the lawyer, explains like the custody hearing. And she's like, so how much is this gonna cost? She's like, well, I need a $5,000 retainer. And this girl's face was just like, $5,000 is so much money up front if you're 16 and have no job. So she had to like go crawl back to her mom. And you're like, she has no options. But she was so dumb because it's like, your mom is willing to let you live in the house. You just have to clean up a little bit. And she still wants to take care of your dumb kid. Just let her do it. What a weird,
Yeah.
like watching that, I'm like, let her take care of your kid. Who cares? Just be a
Yeah.
little nice to her.
Also, it's like that's what she's supposed to do it when you're 16. Like,
Well, my mom told me specifically when we were kids, she was like, if you guys get pregnant, I am not going to help you at all. Which I was like, that makes sense. You don't even take care of us. So, like, I knew early on there was no way she was going to help me at all. So, I knew that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, to get her to even watch my dogs is like a big thing. I have to do like 100 things for her. So, it's just not worth it.
Well, like your joke about was it to be your surrogate, and you're like, you won't even let me store my bike in your
Well, that's the
garage.
thing about my mom is like she has these moments where she wants to be a good mom. Like I remember when I was like deciding if I was going to go away to college or not, she really didn't want me to leave home, and she told me her and my father would sleep in the living room and I could have their bedroom. We lived in a two-bedroom apartment, which is like it's so crazy that she didn't even consult with my father that they were just going to move into the living room and I was going to have their bedroom.
Yeah, he's like,
And
wait,
then
hold up.
yeah, and then once I started college, I went to like a community college. They wouldn't even pay for it. So I'm like, do you know what I mean? Like you told me I could have this living room as I could have your bedroom, and now you won't even pay like $1,100 for whatever these classes were. So it's like she tries to be a good mom, but she doesn't have a lot of follow through.
Yeah, she's like, I just like to say things.
Right. So like she might say, I'll be your surrogate, and then as the day comes and I've spent all this money on it, she's gonna change her mind.
She's like, now's not
Like
a good
that's
time.
she's gonna be like, well, I thought, and like she'll just be like, Adrian, I thought about this, and this really doesn't work out well for me. I'm like, well, I've already spent $100,000 in this. And she'd be like, well, that just seems like your problem, and you're like, okay, that's something she would do.
Well, now's not a really great time. Like, I'm going on vacation, and I
She's like, I
would.
really like to start dating right now, and it's not going to be great if I'm pregnant. And you're like, well, you knew this was part of it when you offered to be like a surrogate. My mother would never. She'd be the worst surrogate.
Crazy to be at that age that you can actually hold a baby, but you can't conceive one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. Can you still be a surrogate if you're like 60?
I think so. If you still have a uterus, unless you didn't get a hysterectomy. But then
No,
I don't know.
she does not have. She didn't get a hysterectomy, so I guess technically she could be a surrogate. How weird would that be, seeing like a 60-year-old woman who's like pregnant, but she's like, I'm just carrying it from my. That's also the other thing. If she did do it, she would tell everyone, and I would like be indebted to her forever. So much so that I
Forever.
would just want this kid to die. I would just pray every day my kid died so she would stop telling me how much I owed her for my dumb
Yeah,
surrogate baby.
you'd have to ghost your mom right after she gave birth to your kid.
She would find me.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, where am I going to move to? I can't really afford to live anywhere outside the Bronx right now. So
That's
she would
true.
find me.
Oh wow. Well, We should wrap it up. It's been a 90-minute podcast.
Whoa, we went nuts today. That's because my dog is sleeping.
Yeah, a lot's going on.
Peggy is driving me nuts. I
Well,
know she's a
still a
baby, but
baby. Wait till she
here's
becomes
a little.
a teenager. Is
Can you
she
see a
fixed?
little zoo?
Yeah.
Nice. Can you see a little zoo?
I like your 2 love seats. It looks like you have a nail salon in your
Well, it's just this thing is down, so I could put my coffee on it, but I could flip it
Yeah.
back up. It's like a
Oh,
regular
nice.
couch. Yeah. It's like I have people over and I'm just doing their nails on the side to make money during COVID. I'm like, hey, come over for a movie and I'll also give you a pedicure and manicure. I have those little chairs that you sit on the floor with.
Oh my god, that would be amazing. Like, for people that don't have streaming service, just, like, come over and watch, some streaming stuff,
It's not a
and
bad idea.
yeah, and
Get
then
a
you can get your
manicure,
nails done.
pedicure. Yeah, manicure, pedicure, get like a tanning bed going. You can really make a nice little racket of money.
Well, I'm trying to find a foot massage place in Queens, but I've, like, it's such a funny business because you're like, there's also a high chance I might just go into a masturbation station.
True, but if you just take your shoes off, they would have to first get your clothes off. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be, they're not going to just massage your feet and then start fingering you.
And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Like, at least when you get like a back massage, you are naked. So they're just like slip a finger somewhere. You're like, hey, but like with your feet, you can keep your pants on, I think. Do you
Bye,
want me to
guys.
stop this? Bye,
Yeah.
guys.